Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Sedef and I'll be delivering today's mindfulness session for the Shama Women's Centre. And in this session, we'll be talking about listening mindfully. And this session is going to be uploaded onto Shama Women's Centre's Facebook and Instagram account. So why not drop them a follow if you're not already doing so, or drop them a like. And also feel free to drop me a follow or like on my Resonate Success Facebook or Instagram page, and all details below. So, today we'll be looking at how we can listen more mindfully in our day-to-day lives. I'll also get you to engage in a brief few mindful listening exercises, and we'll also end up with a nice meditation at the end to help relax and gain that clarity in our day-to-day lives by listening more mindfully. And also feel free to drop a comment below. I'd love to hear about what you thought about today's session and if you resonated with anything, or share some of your mindful practices or meditative practices. That would be lovely to hear. Now, I often notice when I work with or engage with people how absorbed they are in worrying about the past or becoming disconnected with the present moment. And it also happens to everyone, including myself. For example, people no longer notice the sounds around them, such as birds singing or hearing those leaves rustling in the wind, or laughter from other people that they may encounter. This is because we become so absorbed in our problems and issues that we become stuck in that part of the brain that's often referred to as the primitive mind. And the anxiety we produce in this area, such as stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, increase immensely when we're stressed or anxious. Now that's great for when we're in emergencies, but it's not so great when we're trying to manoeuvre through our day-to-day lives. And there can be many reasons for this, such as stress, anxiety, fear, etc. There's so many reasons why we can end up producing those stress hormones, those cortisols and adrenalines, when we don't really need to access them at that time. Now, it's so amazing to see people I work with begin to notice the sounds around them. Example, when they go down the road for a walk, or they're dropping their children off at school, or out and about on their daily activities. And then people begin to actively listen. They begin to produce more positive chemicals in the brain, such as serotonin or dopamine, for example, that counter those stress hormones that we produce in a different part of our brain, the primitive mind. So, I'd like to give you a really small challenge today. So, the next time you're in your garden or perhaps out and about, I'd like you to just notice something. I'd like you to notice what sounds you can hear around you. Maybe the sounds at home, and just really home into those sounds. Perhaps birds or the wind, maybe people that you can hear or see, and cars, etc. And what I want you to do is just notice how this makes you feel as you go along your daily tasks, because it helps us to focus on the present moment. Well, for a start, what will happen is your heartbeat will begin to naturally slow down. Why? Because you'll begin to produce less of those stress hormones that we talked about, those cortisols and adrenalines, etc. And what will happen, you'll begin to produce more positive neurotransmitters or happy chemicals in your brain that essentially make you feel more happier, more positive, and this happens amazingly without you even knowing it's happening, because our brains are such complex and amazing centre activity. Now, what I'd like to do now is focus a little bit about how we engage with others in terms of conversation, in terms of listening. So, can you imagine a time or remember a time where perhaps you've had a conversation with someone and you thought you were paying attention to them, when in fact afterwards you realised that you can't remember what they've said, or only bits of what they've said? Or perhaps you get distracted while you're speaking to them and you've missed the message of that conversation that they were trying to give. Now, how do you think that could have made them feel? Just ponder on that for a little moment. Or if you were them, if the shoe was on the other foot, how would it make you feel? When you're engaging with in a conversation with someone and they're not paying that much attention, or they seem like they've got other things on their minds. It can often have that negative impact on our lives in terms of our own self-esteem, and whether we challenge whether we have or we are capable anymore or have that ability to get our message across. And it can be really get us down if we don't observe listening mindfully. Because it's a fact, in our day-to-day lives, it can be a real challenge sometimes to shut down those distractions such as noise and background sounds. And our own thoughts and reactions can draw us away from any conversation we may have. So perhaps bring to mind a conversation that you've had with someone when this happened. And think about how we can potentially listen more mindfully and have a better conversation, or take away a lot more than what we normally do. So, for a start, first we would begin to listen more mindfully. We become more aware of those distractions. But we begin to remain open to the speaker's ideas and messages that they're telling us. So, what we're going to do, we're going to look at the concept of mindful listening and suggest simple ways that you can implement techniques to improve your listening skills, engage more out of those conversations and become more productive as a person or professionally in whichever context. So what we're going to do, we're going to explore a simple concept of stop, enjoy, ask and reflect. So 4 things. And what we're going to home into is listening and hearing. So in terms of stop, so the next time you engage in a conversation with someone, whoever it may be, implement these things and notice. Feel free to write them down too if it helps. Just stop what you're doing at that moment and perhaps bring your full attention to the here and now of the conversation you're engaging with at that moment. Number 2, just enjoy the sensation of breath as you choose to receive whatever is coming into your mind through this interaction. Just notice it. Number 3, ask yourself if you know what these thoughts mean, and if you don't, just ponder on those thoughts for a few moments and allow them to pass through your mind. And don't make any assumptions, because being curious is the forefront of this particular exercise. Nothing more and nothing less. And you actually might be surprised at what you discover from having that conversation, or what thoughts are going through your mind. And number 4, reflection. Reflect or mirror back to them what you've heard. This tells the person you're really listening, and also it embeds into you elements of that conversation that you can take away and continue your action further. So let's have a little look at the concept of mindful listening. So according to John Kabat-Zinn, who is a professor and emeritus at the University of Massachusetts Medical School, John says mindfulness means paying attention in particular or on purpose to the present moment and non-judgmentally. Now, I like that because it really encompasses bringing our awareness to the present moment in terms of listening more mindfully. And John Kabat-Zinn has written many books on mindfulness that you may want to have a look up and implement into your day-to-day lives. So, as we know, we've been learning how mindfulness helps us to be aware of the here and now, the present moment, and helps us to let go of distractions as well as physical and emotional reactions to what people might say to us. So, for example, when we're not being mindful, we can get distracted by our own thoughts and concerns, and we often neglect to see and hear what other people are doing and saying to us. We've all gone through that. We've all experienced that. Some of us at different varying levels. Some people are really good listeners and some people are not so good. Or sometimes in our lives we're really good at, if it's something really important, we try our hardest to listen if we're not too stressed. And we maintain more information. Sometimes we're not able to do that and we don't hold as much information as we need. Now, according to communication expert Rebecca Shafir, who suggests that the average person can actually remember only about 25% of what someone has said to them. just after a few minutes of the conversation. I find that really interesting because how many of us, for example, after having that conversation with a colleague or with our bosses or with a neighbour or family or friends, sometimes say, sorry, what was that you said? Or can I just clarify that? Or sorry, could you just go over that again? I know that I do this sometimes. We all do it. Because that's the nature of how our mind works. We sometimes worry about or have too much going on in our mind and we're not able to just let go. So the goal of mindful listening is to quieten that noise from within, from those thoughts that come from deep within us. We all have them. And the purpose is that we provide that space to hear the whole message. So the person you're conversing with feels understood and you feel happier coming out of the other end of that conversation too. Now, I don't know if anyone's heard of the author Charlie Scott, but according to his study, Get Out of Your Own Head, Mindful Listening for Project Managers, he describes key elements of mindful listening that can help us to improve our listening skills. So let's have a brief look at that. Number 1, be present. So, when you listen mindfully, your focus should be on the person you're listening to without distractions. But how do we actually do that? Well, there's lots of different ways, and I'm just going to go through a few today. So, for a start, we would declutter our surroundings. Our workplaces or workspaces are full of distractions like phones, computers, printers, and other electronic devices we may have around because of the nature of the world we're living in terms of technology and helps us to engage and do our work where we need to. So, perhaps keep your workplace tidier. Perhaps mute your devices when you're on a call or when you're, in a meeting or doing some work. Or when you're having a conversation with someone, that's really important. I find that when people are tapping away on their phones or listening to whatever's going on around them and not listening to what I say, it can make me feel kind of out of sorts. And it can question whether what you've said, and you've worked really hard to deliver a presentation or present that, it can really make you question your own abilities, but remember, it's about listening mindfully. So as we begin to listen more mindfully, we begin to produce that environment, create that environment where we can have more beneficial conversations in the long term. Now, give yourself time. This is really important. So whether you're going to connect onto a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting or even face-to-face or a phone call, practice a few relaxation techniques, such as deep breathing and muscle relaxation before your conversation begins. Even if it's just for a few minutes, it's so powerful. It really gets you into the zone. I find that really, really helps me, especially before I work with clients or before I have a meeting. I have my little ritual or of meditation or mindfulness or positive affirmations to get me into that place and to calm my mind and to get my breathing calmer and deeper, so I get plenty of oxygen to my brain, so I'm ready. So I take a few moments to compose myself by breathing deeply and lowering my heartbeat so I can be the best version of me for that particular conversation. I'd love to hear if you have a particular way of calming yourself or getting yourself into that zone. If so, pop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear about what you do, and perhaps we can share and learn from each other together. So meditation, I mean on this course we've seen how we can implement meditation or mindfulness practices in different forms or visualizations just for a few minutes a day. And it's a really wonderful, beneficial way, a positive way of bringing ourselves into the here and now. Because when we clear our minds of all that clutter that we have, because we all have it, we begin to make room for those positive conversations, people's points of view, and it's a bit like having a spring clean in our mind. For example, when we have guests over before lockdown happened, and hopefully we're coming out the end of that, so I'm ready for that, and I hope you are too. When we have guests come over, we make sure there isn't any clutter about, and we provide an inviting space for people to engage socially or in any other form. And this also goes for decluttering our mind. It's interesting that we don't declutter our minds as we would our home if we receive a visitor or a guest. So it's the same concept, but more in a mental, mindful way. As we're learning mindfulness or meditation is like so many other exercises, the more you do it, the better you become. And remember, it can be difficult to focus or find time in a busy schedule, because I have a very busy schedule. I'm involved with so many projects and so many different initiatives, and my home life as well. So it's a game of juggling all those things together, and I'm sure you all do too. So it can be really busy to schedule in those few moments just to catch our breaths, to stop, breathe and relax. But even 5 to 10 minutes a day can really, really help. For me, I really feel it helps start my day and get my day into that positive space. Because when I don't implement that mindful or meditation practice, I see the difference. It seems to have a negative impact on my day, and I notice the differences because I become aware of how my day changes because my mindset isn't focused on a positive level. Another point is cultivating a space for more empathy. So when we're having that conversation, it's important to make that space, which is a positive space, because we often see the world through our own eyes, our own experiences due to our personality, maybe our beliefs and mindsets. But without knowing, consciously or subconsciously, we can show bias. And this can actually affect the way we interact with other people, whether it's on a social level or a professional level too. And what can happen, we can start making those assumptions about people without really getting to know who they are. So, when we become more empathetic, we develop the skills to allow us to understand a situation from someone else's point of view. So perhaps seeing through the eyes of the person you're working with, understanding what those words mean to them. That it's not necessarily a negative thing, it's how they feel, their perspective on things, and how many of us do that. And if we don't, let's begin to do that together. And if you are, that's fantastic. I'd love to know if you've picked up any great tips that you could share with other people too. So what happens when we create that empathic or more empathetic environment, we begin to accept perspectives or viewpoints that are different to our own. We begin to agree to disagree empathetically in a more positive way, and that's okay to do that because we don't need to allow stress or anger or tension to be involved in that, because that's what holds us back. Another important tip I find really, really useful is being aware of our behaviours or our cues, for example. These can perhaps be our thoughts or feelings or physical reactions when we begin to feel anxious or angry, when our stress hormones begin to peak or increase. And these negative feelings or reactions or cues or behaviours can really begin to impact our creativity from a professional perspective and a personal perspective. So it's really important to just bring awareness to mindful listening more in the conversations we have. And it can help us to become more aware of our negative feelings and allow us to cultivate that environment for more positive thoughts, positive actions and positive interactions overall. And it can help us to not impact our communication negatively, but more positively. So what are the benefits of mindful listening? Well, it's not just active listening, it goes beyond that, because active listening kind of provides a checklist for actions to follow, but it doesn't necessarily prompt you as the listener to monitor your thoughts, your feelings perhaps, or your reactions that might affect what you hear in a conversation or engagement. Instead, mindful listening can help you to become aware of the distractions that we may be encountering in our minds, and it can really help to refocus and listen more consciously together. So, while we're here, let's do something. I'd like to bring awareness perhaps to the sounds around you right now, in this moment. And if you want to, if it helps, why not close your eyes? And just notice what you can hear. If I close my eyes right now, which I'm doing, I'm aware of my laptop making a whirring sound, or I can hear my aquarium at the back of the room, the filter of the water dropping. And I can also hear the distant sound of cars and birds tweeting as they fly over. So in that few moments, I don't know how you felt about it, but I know that it really helped me to just slow my breathing down. Automatically we feel relaxed because within those few moments your brain is producing more serotonin, more positive chemicals to get you into that more positive space. So what we do, we use our representational system, we use our senses. So today we're focusing around mindful listening, hearing, and we're going to be looking at all different types of senses and how we can implement and use those gifts that we're given to really make our lives more positive. So any sounds that you hear, perhaps allow sounds that you hear to ground you into the present moment. And remember, you don't have to pass any judgment during this time. You don't even need to analyse the sounds around you. All you need to do is simply accept they're there, notice them, and allow yourself to just experience them. Now, if you start to become impatient when you're noticing these sounds, all you need to do is slowly redirect your attention to the sounds around you. And don't react to your feelings of restlessness or frustration. I find it really good if we just bring back attention to our breath when other sounds around us are coming and going and making us feel a bit negative or frustrated. So, with that, let's get meditating. Now, in your own time, if you'd like to take a moment to find a comfortable place to sit, stand or lie down. And it doesn't matter where you are right now. Perhaps you're sitting at home, you're in your office or somewhere else. I would like you to bring your attention to your body and notice how your body feels right now. And don't cast any judgment. Just notice the weight of your head over your shoulders and release any tension you may be experiencing from your arms, allowing any stress or tension to flow through you, out of your hands and through your fingers. Now, relax your back muscles and release any tightness in your stomach. Just notice how your legs begin to relax, following all the way down to your feet and your toes. Don't worry if you're finding it a little difficult to relax right now. It will come with time and practice. I'd like you to bring awareness to your breath. And when you do so, inhale deeply and slowly, breathing in all the way to the crown of your head, and exhale slowly and deeply, so much so that you can feel your body relax right now. And take a moment to observe the alignment of your body, ensuring it's in perfect symmetry. If you haven't already, allow your eyes to close naturally whilst being calm and relaxed. Now, I would like you to turn your attention to all the sounds you hear around you. and allow your breath to be the anchor of your awareness throughout this meditation. And whenever you get lost in thought, effortlessly return your attention to hearing the sound of your breath. Now, as you relax there and as you listen, there's no need to identify or interpret the sounds you hear. All you need to do right now is hear the sounds just as they are. You don't need to add anything to them. Perhaps you can hear someone speaking, but that's okay, because you don't need to understand their words right now. This is your time for you to relax and enjoy. Just simply notice the sound of any voices and allow the sounds to be without any judgment. Whatever the sound may be, just notice it with peace and curiosity. Allow all of the sounds to be just as they are, nothing more, nothing less. Now, calmly notice how the sounds you hear come and go. Notice how they go by, how they may or may not change in rhythm or tempo, but that's okay. Now, as you relax there deeply, ponder on the fact that sounds are not permanent. We make them permanent by holding on to them unnecessarily. So, just let go of any negative sounds, because you are in control and you can let go of them whenever you want to, because this is your time that you are creating for yourself right now. Now, bring attention to your breath, noticing the sound of your breath as you inhale and exhale deeply as you relax. Perhaps your breath is loud or quiet, or maybe something in between. How does it make you feel right now? And don't worry if it's hard, it will come with time and practice. Now listen to your breath for a few more moments and enjoy the calm that you have created. Notice how your body relaxes deeply then. As you listen to sounds and thoughts and sensations that arise, relate these sounds and thoughts and sensations in the same way you would relate to what you hear around you, with positivity, with relaxation and mindful awareness, and totally free of judgment. As you relax there, enjoying this moment, observe the silence that also exists right now. This is your space, nobody else's, that you have created all for yourself. Just ponder on how silence is what allows all sounds to be. Just notice how silence is where all sounds come from and where all sounds return. Continue to rest your awareness on the sounds and the silence you hear. Relate to everything that arises in your awareness with calmness and inner peace. By mindfully noticing that you are creating peace in the mind and body, because you strengthen your mind's ability to relate to more awareness around you. Now, in your own time, if you'd like to take a few moments to bring attention to your body, starting at your toes, through your legs, and into your belly and up through your back, through your arms, shoulders and neck, and back to your precious breath. And slowly begin to open your eyes and adjust to your surroundings. Now, I hope you're feeling relaxed, because I am, and have enjoyed this session on listening more mindfully. And I would really love to hear your thoughts and comments, so please feel free to drop down a comment on the link below. So in the next session, we'll be looking at feeling mindfully. So we've looked at listening mindfully, feeling mindfully, and I'd like to leave you with a quote by Bryant McGill. One of the most sincere forms of respect is actually listening to what another person has to say. So with that, have a lovely few days and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.